Welcome viewers, welcome to Hotline with Ann Duki on ITV and iRadioTT.com. Before we begin the program today, let me just say condolences to the family and friends of Professor Dr. Brinsley Samaru, former government minister, well-known historian and professor at the University of the West Indies, passed away yesterday. You know, during my career in media, especially in the newspaper, Dr. Samaru played an important part for information. Well, on today's program, we are in the midst of local government elections, and the San Fernando Corporation is a battleground seat, which could break the current 7-7 tie, which the PNM and UNC obtained in the 2019 local government poll. Listeners and viewers will recall that the ruling PNM party experienced a slide in votes in the last local government elections. Then the PNM lost ground in the San Fernando area, and the UNC had 3 seats, also losing the Coquille-Tarouba seat by 30 votes. We have today as our guest Mr. Marcus Girdharie. How will this newcomer to the ruling party impact on the battle for this corporation? Mr. Girdharie, being no neophyte to politics, having represented the Marabella West, Vistabella area for the opposition UNC in the last term. Mr. Girdharie, welcome to Hotline and ITV.
And thank you so very much for the opportunity, and good day to your listeners and to Trinidad and Tobago.
Mr. Girdharie, there are many tongues are wagging and people are talking that up to May 19th you had represented the United National Congress before you switched sides. First, it would be foremost of me not to ask what made you make this change.
But basically, after having read the local government reform upon which the People's National Movement is campaigning for the local government election, but the reform in its entirety is basically the only solution to bring appropriate and timely services of local government to the burgesses and residents of Trinidad. And that would have been primarily the main reason under which the decision was made.
When you changed side, did you create enemies with the UNC?
Well, I don't think that it's a position of creating enemies, because we live in a democratic society, and everyone is entitled to support and choose whom politically they wish to represent or vote for.
You know, you took the words right out of my mouth. Last night I was looking at World News and I was saying how fortunate we are in Trinidad and Tobago that we are free to choose sides. And despite whichever party is ruling, everyone can get help. When you look at those countries like Nairobi and Kenya and so on, if you don't support the ruling party, well, as they would say colloquially, a dog's dead. So indeed, we have a free will to choose politically. When you decided to change sides to the PNM, was it for the people of Marabella South and Vistabella solely?
Sorry, could you just repeat?
Yeah, I said when you that moment when you decided to change sides and represent Marabella South Vistabella under the People's National Movement, was it because under the current leadership that you had before, you were not getting the help that you needed for that area?
Well, no, because I mean, at the end of the day, I would have, if I understand the question, because I think the internet is coming and going for some reason.
Probably the weather, yes.
But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I have been entire term of my first term of my office, very present on the ground with the residents in which I serve. And these would be the communities of primarily St. Joseph Village, Mutu lands, Mirage lands, and Vista Bella. And so, though the individuals who reside in my district would have known that I would have belonged to a particular political party, at the end of the day, even my campaign in 2019 was centered around Marcus and the deliverables of what Marcus is able to do for you as your representative. And it would have also assisted me in that regard, because I would have been very intimate with my residents, to the point where before the news of my departure from the UNC and my migration to the People's National Movement was made public via the newspaper that Sunday morning, I would have communicated directly with all the various residents, community chats, informing my residents that I would have made this decision and on what was the reason and the cause for my decision. So that would have helped me, because as I see myself as a elected representative, I am accountable to my burgesses. And I felt it was prudent of me to afford them the understanding that I would have communicated to them my move, as opposed to getting up on Sunday morning and reading the newspaper and saying, but when did this happen? And that helped me significantly in terms of maintaining my support by my burgesses.
When you say burgesses, you are saying both the PNM and UNC. Have you had experience while being a United National Congress representative that PNM supporters would come to you for help and vice versa?
Yeah, certainly, because during my term of office, my representation was not for first of all, it was not for the persons that would have voted for me, nor would it have been for the persons that are members of the UNC. My representation for the entire term of my office was across the board. So when you came to my office, or you reached out to me for whatever needs or complaints that you may have had, I never asked anyone of their political affiliation. And as I started the conversation, because I believe in that, we have our democratic right to choose whom we will support, but it is my right as being an elected representative to serve all and sundry.
Tell our viewers, Mr. Marcus, how far does this area stretch that you intend to represent?
Well, the boundaries would be, if you're familiar with San Fernando, from the traffic lights on the bypass, which is the St. Joseph Village traffic lights,
yes,
and you're heading in a northerly direction straight down the bypass to Marabella roundabout. You're coming onto Pointe-a-Pierre Road from Marabella roundabout in the vicinity of the Marabella police station, and coming all the way back to Vista Bella Presbyterian School on Pointe-a-Pierre Road, and then you're making a left turn familiar to on Circular Road, like where Puff and stuff is, back to St. Joseph Village. Everything inside there is my district, as well as my district also extends on and that particular location I would have just pointed out is located in the San Fernando East constituency. But my district is one that spreads both in the east, San Fernando East District as well as the San Fernando West District. And the boundaries under the San Fernando West District would be in the vicinity of B Road, Elizabeth Street, coming all the way down to Agnes Street, and then back onto Pointe-a-Pierre Road, and then you're going into Hubert Rand Street, Smart Street, all the areas behind Victoria Nursing Home, which will be Guppy Street, that area up to the Yacht Club, extending also to on Waddle Street, Zusha Street, Crawford Street, and back onto Alexander Road, to Pointe-a-Pierre Road, and back to the Vistabella Presbyterian School. So I traverse both east and west constituencies.
Does this include the press area in what is called the line?
No, it doesn't.
No, okay.
It does.
But it borders
The line would lie, that would lie in the Marabella West District.
Right. Are there depressed areas within where you represent?
Well, I would say that I am blessed with the fact that my district is one that does not suffer from the likes of floods that other areas in the San Fernando city would complain about. We basically have, there are some areas where it can be considered to be depressed because there is some degree of unemployment, and in those particular areas, I would have had through the council and the mayor being able to provide casual work for persons who seek casual employment through the corporation, to aid them with their daily living and finances. So I am really blessed in terms of my area is somewhat of a affluent upper middle class area, and yes, I do have some area that might be considered in the scheme of things at a lower level, but to say that I have heightened poverty and that sort of thing, not really.
Besides poverty, what would you say the area is lacking? Having traversed the area, I imagine you would have been campaigning the area and having represented it before as well. What would you say it is lacking that you were not able to provide in your last term in office?
So some of the things that I want to focus on and to continue, some of the things that I wish to focus on and continue in my second term, once given the opportunity by the residents, would be there are some traffic issues, some traffic woes with regards to Pointe-a-Pierre. For example, Mutu lands is an area that basically some taxis use the community of Mutu lands to bypass the traffic on the main road, as well as in the Mirage lands area. There's a recurring problem because of the industrial and businesses and the number of employed people for companies that are based on Mirage Avenue in Mirage lands. What you find happening is there's a lot of sometimes indiscriminate parking that upsets residents in terms of their accessibility in and out of their driveways. So some traffic issues are some of the things that we need to look at. There's also some environmental issues. So for example, in my first term, I would have started a recycling program for the St. Joseph Village residents. And just at the end of the term, I would have been able to extend that recycling program to the Vistabella area, where I was able to have a recycling bin placed at the Vistabella Community Center Regional Complex. So the education of recycling and its benefits to individuals and to the environment is something that I would like to spread across my district. Also, green spaces. I think green spaces are something that we need to have more visible, more accessibility to. Because one of the things that I've come to recognize is that as you go through communities, we no longer know our neighbors. We no longer are familiar with the persons to whom we live with. I remember, for those of you who are my age and older, you remember Sesame Street had a song, and one of the songs was, "Who are the people in your neighborhood?" And that
a
question
counselor
still
who could sing
remains.
as well. We have a counselor who could sing.
But I've come to realize that green spaces help with a number of things. It helps with the environment. It helps to alleviate stress. It helps to encourage physical exercise. I mean, we have statistics in Trinidad where there's things like living diseases like diabetes that are
Yes.
living diseases. We have a record of obesity of children in Trinidad, at high levels. And so green spaces it is hoped, would help to give an avenue where children could put down laptops and tablets and their phones and come out with their parents and develop a habit of healthy fellowship and family building and neighborly building, communities where you could meet with friends and chat and have exercises and that sort of thing. So those are some of the things that I also wish to bring about. You have other things like business initiatives to help start up businesses, because one of the things that we have in the area would have been persons who may have lost some form of employment, whether it's through the pandemic or whatever it is, for whatever reason. And so we have many persons who are trying to do startup businesses from their homes to become entrepreneurs where they could earn a living for themselves. So I would hope to, provide some sort of means by which I could educate individuals and provide them with the many initiatives that the government has for startup businesses, whether it's in agriculture, in whatever sector. And of course, the last thing I have planned for myself are social services for families. We do have a number of single parents that reside in the electoral district of Marabella, South Vistibella. And so things like social services like homework centers, to establish a homework center in the Vistibella community. We also have, again, the assistance to individuals for government assisted funds like grants, disability grants and that sort of thing, because many people don't understand the remit of their local government councillor. And by that I mean, persons will come to my office to find out about housing. Persons will come to my office to find out about food cards and that sort of thing, which those things are not under the responsibility of your local government councillor. But it does not mean that I cannot guide people as to how they could benefit from the social services that the government has available to individuals. So it is a second term of these things, whereby a heightened degree of awareness and education to the burgesses and residents of Marabella, South Vistibella for their personal benefits.
Mr. Girdharie, yes, let's take a short commercial break, and when we return in the second segment of the program, tell us some more about the social services that you advise people on. For our listeners and viewers out there who don't know, Marabella is a former town in the southern in southern Trinidad between San Fernando to the south and Point Apia to the north. Early 19th century maps highlighted it as Marabella Junction because of the railway intersection into Williamsville and other central areas. Originally a separate town, it was incorporated into the San Fernando City Corporation. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Hello, join me on Hotline with Ann Dookie every Monday at 1 to 2 p.m. The thing with this coronavirus is we had to push away the ones we love the most. We had to watch our families dwindle. We have seen infection rates rising. People are reluctant to get vaccinated. But wait, this is where the doctors come in. Then we had to face rise in food prices every day. Most of you will agree we have been challenged. It's time we make the policies to set the agenda. Join me on Hotline with Ann Dookie, Mondays from 1 to 2 p.m. live on IETV and iRadioTT.com. See you there. Welcome back, viewers on ITV, and to those listeners on iRadioTT.com to Hotline with Ann Dookie with Mr. Marcus Girdharie, People's National Movement representative, fighting for the seat in Marabella, West Vista Bella. Mr. Girdharie, welcome back. Before we went on the break, I was asking you to tell us some more about the social services. Which social service do you find residents tend to come to you most with?
Well, the one of the things that I've found that residents have, we had a stint of, once we had some flooding in the Mirage Lands area, and so people are not aware of the processes that exist for the claiming of any lost goods or assets because of flooding. And so the procedure is one where the councillor is to provide a report to the disaster management unit, and then the disaster management unit will do a site visit, and then social workers, the social welfare workers, will come in to assess the damages of what was done. And so that is one of the things that, there are so many government assisted agencies and funds, but what we have is persons who basically don't take the time to explore via the internet, because it is accessible via the internet, what is necessary for them to access these social grants and benefits. And so many times when persons come to my office, is it whether through myself or my assistant, we just have to guide them as to how they can go about fulfilling the requirements to justify their approval for, as I indicated, pensions, disability benefits, and for the other grants that the governments might provide. And so I have found that many times people are reliant upon the councillor for all the information, but yet the information is accessible and available to everyone through the various government websites.
And if you turn them away, yes, they're ready to bad talk you. People are not aware that council, it extends to other things like disaster management, repairs of schools and so on, if a school is affected with flooding and so on. Am I right? Your mother
yes,
with
you're
all
correct.
this,
and
all this responsibility?
More so the local government reform that the People's National Movement has brought forward and approved is one that is so fantastic in terms of I have worked in the council for 1 year for my first term, and I understand the bureaucracy of the system that oftentimes is a challenge to overcome for the timeliness of the deliverables of services from the local government, municipalities to burgesses and residents. And the local government reform is really what is necessary to change the system, to change that untimeliness of services from the corporation. So local government reform is the way to go.
One of the bureaucracy is inadequate funding for projects. Do you find
Yes.
that?
And so
and
what
the
will
red tag,
happen-
the red label you have to go through with the council, with the corporation, with the government part run of the corporation to get projects going. How do you feel about that?
So you see, again, it's education. So many people are not aware that a municipality, all 14 municipalities in Trinidad, cannot spend more than $300,000. And what do I mean by that? If a councillor proposes a project and the estimated cost for that project is in excess of $300,000, that project has to go to the ministry for approval and for funding. If the municipality has to buy a motor vehicle that costs more than $300,000, that has to go to ministry, central government for approval and for funding. And it is through the funding processes where you hear the complaints about we do not have enough money, or we have not received the allocation and releases of the monies as yet. And hence the reason sometimes you have services that have been proposed by the councillor in the last fiscal, and it is only now through the release of funds from central government is the money received at the municipality and is now is able to be used. Now under the local government reform, that is going to change. That will change, whereby there will be no longer the input of central government. So the local government municipalities will be able to use and approve all their funding in any dollar value. And so they will no longer have a need of or an excuse of saying, well, we have not have the release of allocation of funds. Because one of the other things, apart from the budgeted monies that is to come from the national budget to local government ministry, is also the reintroduction of the property tax. And so the property tax would also be another, according to the finance minister, another $50 million to local government municipalities, because the property tax for every district will be paid to the municipality as additional funding. And so under the local government reform, we are going to have another, through property tax, another income stream to the municipalities.
Over the years, several bodies have done appraisals on local government reform. So then there's no need for any new law to be put in place to get access to funds. You're saying that falls under the reform that is taking place.
Yes.
How
Yes.
do your burgesses feel about property tax?
Well, when I explain to them, they understand and agree that we need money to run the country. They understand that, for example, since the previous administration in 2009 would have removed the property tax, they understand the challenge that municipalities would have had in not having adequate funding for services like cleaning empty overgrown lots, for example. Now, when I speak with them and I bring some level of understanding that the monies is going to be used and paid to the municipality for the services that you are now complaining that you are not receiving, they understand. And there's another element to this whole reform. So I spoke about the removal of the bureaucracy of central government from the local government operation. Then I spoke about the additional income stream, that being the property tax. But then persons might have asked the question, so that how do we now keep account as to where this money is being spent? And this is where we have the OPR, which is the Office of the Procurement Registration, and that independent body is the entity that we are municipalities will be accountable to. So, for example, as it stands right now, any organization that is doing business with any state-owned entity, contractors, businesses that we buy newspapers from, toilet paper, whatever it is, all these companies must be registered at this present point in time with the Office of Procurement Registration. And what that does, as a result, that gives the accountability, auditing, and transparency of where monies are being used. And many people, again, are not familiar and understand the operation of the OPR. So let me use an example for understanding sake. As your counselor, if I propose a project, let's say a box drain, and the building or engineering department does an estimate based on the proposal of the construction of this box drain, and let's just say the engineering department says this box drain should cost about 150,000. So as a result, we open tenders. So we have, in this particular case of example, we have 4 companies that would have tendered for the box drain. Now remember, the box drain cost is supposed to be around 150. Yes, there are margins for overruns and that sort of thing. But in this particular case, we have one company, let's just say, would have submitted a tender for 140,000. Another company would have submitted a tender for 150. A third company 175, and a fourth company 200. And let's just say the award of contract was granted to the company that tendered 175. Under the new structure of the OPR, the other 3 companies that did not win the contract, they have to be written to by the organization and told which company won the award, how much they won it in terms of cost, and they also now have a 10 days period in which they can object. So if, for example, the award of contract was given to a company, and let's just say, I don't know, for some reason, the other 3, or any one of the other 3 might say, well, listen, we really don't feel that they have the capability to do the job in terms of machinery. They could lodge a complaint, and an investigation will be done. It goes so far to say, if that box drain is being constructed in front of your home, and for some reason on a daily basis, you are observing the work that is being done, and you bring a question as a resident, you bring a question to the OPR for them to create an investigation. Let's just say you are saying, but how come they're not putting down any steel in the drain for the box drain? You know, why it doesn't have any steel? An investigation will be done, and if it is that either the contractor is found to be negligible in his performance based on the contract, one of two things going to happen. The recovery of the public funds has to be repaid by the contractor back to the state, or the contractor have to come back in at his own expense and do over the work that is necessary to fit to the contract. Now it goes even further in terms of accountability. Let's just say the officer of the state that would have signed off on the works being done for the construction of the drain was found to be negligible as well. That officer can be criminally charged for negligence. So we don't only have, under the new proposed local government reform, the removal of the bureaucracy and untimeliness of central government and their input into the system. We don't only have additional income to be derived through the property tax for the betterment and of services to our burgesses and residents, but we also have a more stringent and robust accountability system whereby it is not dependent upon the state alone to sanction what is right or what is wrong. It is also giving privilege and opportunity to residents to also question and bring a complaint against any wrongdoing or misdeed. Reform.
Mr. Marcus, you know, local government have been burdened with poor delivery over the years. And you are saying that with this new law, it would take out that image of the sluggish administrative structure that we have at local government. That is what the reform will do. Am I correct?
Correct. And it also will force councillors to become more accountable,
more proactive
to their burgesses.
Yes, proactive.
That's correct. So now you don't have an excuse as to why things cannot happen.
So there's no need for no new legislation and policy. You are saying that local government reform as it is now will resolve that.
Correct.
Having sat in council, yes, you were there for the last 3 years, right?
Correct.
And are you seeing a change?
Well, there's so you know, persons ask, but when is the reform going to happen? And because of the magnitude of the intricacies of local government and its function, you're talking about computer systems, you're talking about workers, you're talking about systems. It is something that you cannot go to sleep tonight on the old system and get up tomorrow and implement the new system. And what the People's National Movement have been doing since the local government reform has been passed, they have been implementing different steps of change. So, for example, in the last term, that before the council was dissolved, there was no such thing as contractors or suppliers to the municipalities having the need to be registered with the OPR. But now they have to. So that has been implemented since the time of the dissolving of office in May to now. Another thing that they're seeking to implement is, as proposed by the local government reform, is a longer term of office, moving from 3 years to 4 years. So things have they have been implemented in stages, and it will continue to be implemented in stages so that the system could be worked out, any tweaks that need to happen, the employees could become familiar as to what is the new way of doing things under the reform. And over a process of time, the entire reform will come into its fullness.
Let's take a short commercial break, Mr. Girdharie, and when we come back, we will speak some more on this local government reform and also what does the San Fernando Waterfront project means for this area. We'll be right back. Hello, join me on Hotline with Ann Dookie every Monday at 1 to 2 p.m. The thing with this coronavirus is we had to push away the ones we love the most. We had to watch our families dwindle. We have seen infection rates rising. People are reluctant to get vaccinated. But wait, this is where the doctors come in. Then we had to face rising food prices every day. Most of you will agree we have been challenged. It's time we make the policies to set the agenda. Join me on Hotline with Ann Dookie, Mondays from 1 to 2 p.m. live on IETV and iRadioTT.com. See you there. Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to IETV and iRadioTT.com. Mr. Marcus, welcome back. Before we went on the break, I said we will continue to speak on local government reform. You know, since the days of Minister Rennie Dumas, the late Minister Rennie Dumas, there have been talks on local government reform since then, and people keep wondering, yes, when will this reform happen? Are you seeing it slowly coming to light? And
well, I think it is. Commendable through the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Girdharie, that he was able to see the need and hear the cry of the residents in terms of the deficiencies of local government and their deliverables to the residents and burgesses. And I think it was prudent of him at this point in time, because there's no better time than now to make that change, to implement the local government reform, because as you indicated, it has been proposed for many years prior. And it seems as though, for one reason or the other, unknown to me, that we would not have had leadership to really action the reform from a place of paper to actuality.
To action, yes. It have always been talked about, and there's always a draft policy, but we have
Correct.
not seen it implemented.
Yes. And so, I mean, it's commendable, as I said, that the Honorable Prime Minister Girdharie would have seen it fit. And I could say to you, in my very first term, I mean, the system in its old state is one that's frustrating. I mean, when you have individuals that, like I've had an example, a resident in one of my districts, there was a drain that collapsed, and it started to undermine the person's foundation. And when the engineering department came and that sort of thing, the estimate to repair that the damage that was done was in excess of $500,000. And what we had to do it in segments. We had to do part of it now under the $300,000 limit, and then we had to propose the second part to be done for the next fiscal year. Now, under the reform, that would not be necessary. There is the emergency, there is the issue, we have the funding, and we can put out a tender, the work to be done, and we could commission the work in a timely manner, so residents don't no longer have to feel that fear and anxiety of what they suffer under the old system, under the new reform.
Mr. Girdharie, the San Fernando Waterfront project, that development, does it spell a lot of success for jobs for people in your area?
Well, I know that because I would have been present. I've made myself present at the public consultation under the Member of Parliament, the Honorable Faris Alwari, and I know for a fact that he would have indicated that the contract would have provided for, in its present state, the employment of a certain percentage of San Fernandians. And so, apart from the development and foresight that this project would bring for San Fernando as the second city of Trinidad and Tobago. It has also been crafted for the benefit of increased employment to persons in San Fernando. Yes.
In particular, the youths and those who found themselves out of employment with COVID and the pandemic.
That is correct. And you see, a lot of times my experience would have been, in terms of my district, the persons that would have been laid off would be persons that were casual and daily paid workers. So when you had companies that may have closed because of COVID protocols and by way of the World Health Organization, these persons were found to be without employment. And then in a large measure, you found that many companies saw it fit to continue the reduction in physical workspaces by having work from home schedules and that sort of thing. Again, reducing the physical manpower needed at businesses and companies. So yes, the employment of the waterfront would have specifically targeted persons, the youth and young persons who would have lost their means of income through the pandemic.
You mentioned in the beginning new business initiatives. Tell us some more about that.
So as you traverse the Pointe-a-Pierre Road, on any given afternoon and night, you can see persons plying their gifts and their talents in the form of sales of various items, from food items, pies, different things, to also handcrafted ornaments, handcrafted home utensils, decorative things and that sort of thing. And so people just want an opportunity to showcase what they have. At the end of the day, it is my opinion that persons do not want to go the way of criminality as a way of life. They understand the challenges, the illegal aspect of criminal business. And so given the opportunity to showcase themselves and their gifts and talents by way of legitimate business is one I believe that would really help with the crime issue as well as treat with the unemployment issue. So the business opportunities and initiatives I've spoken about would be things like hosting a business fair. So, and these are ideas that other councillors use in their municipality. So most districts would have a community center. You could partner with the community center to offer a weekend of business fairs, similar to what you have at malls and that sort of thing, which are called pop-up shops. And so I will be providing the opportunity in terms of space to give individuals and advertising to give individuals the opportunity to, first of all, showcase for sale their products and services through pop-up businesses like that. And then in a second aspect, a second tier of the business opportunities would also look at providing financial education for individuals who would wish to access some degree of funding, whether it's through the financial institutions of banks, credit unions, or even through the business grants that where it be NEDCO, the ADB, different organizations, both from a private point of view as well as a state point of view, have financial opportunities where persons wanting to go into business and establish business can be had. So it would be a position of educating them and bringing them to the point where they could qualify for these forms of funding to establish and expand their businesses, and then look at other initiatives that we could partner with to spread their business to a wider community, whether it is out of a regional position, a national position, a regional position in terms of Caribbean, or even internationally.
During your term in office, when you serve as councillor, how did the closure of Petrotrin affect the residents?
So the closure of Petrotrin would have been prior to my election into office, but at the same time,
but there was long-lasting
the Marabella
effect.
region would have been.
Mr. Girdharie, I said, but the trend would be there, the effect would still be there, even when you.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. So, you know, the Marabella region would have been one that would have been hard hit by the closure of Petrotrin. And so, even in my door-to-door meetings with some of the residents, you know, one or two would ask about, you know, the Petrotrin scenario. And I would say to them simply, it's this position. I likened it to an account. If you have an account and $10 is being deposited every month to that account, but you're taking out $5 every month, basically the account is in deficit and it is losing money. And so there are persons that would have lost their jobs through the Petrotrin closure, and it is for that reason why these initiatives are necessary. It is for that reason why that persons are to be made aware of the different government programs that could afford them ways and means by which they can earn a living to keep an upkeep of themselves and their families going forward.
You mentioned earlier when we were speaking about unemployment that no one wants to be in crime. Statistics have shown that up to in 2022, 2023, crime have doubled in the Marabella area. What is your comment on that?
And that has to do with the fact that, as I said, they are looking for opportunities. You know, if an individual, the guys who lime on the block in my district, if I just pass them straight and don't engage them, then I know what their needs are. I don't know how I am able to assist them. And so a lot of the crimes that are the crimes that have been reported are basically petty crimes. This is what I'm saying. You know, through the local government reform and through the local government municipalities, we do have opportunities by which we can provide weekly employment for individuals. And what I do in my particular office, I would have a list of persons that come to me for employment. And what I simply do is, I have a rotation of these names on a weekly basis by which everybody earns their keep and is able to do their work in the district for the betterment and beautification and that sort of thing of the community in which they live, and they are paid for it. And so my meetings with my casual workers would have been, listen, no one person is going to be on this list permanently because everybody has to live. And so they now have an understanding that, you know, Councillor Girdharie has my name and I am just awaiting the call when my turn comes again. But at the same time, I also try my best through the businesses within the community to find other permanent means of employment. And you know, as I talk about that, one of the initiatives that I forgot to mention is also a partnership with the businesses. So, for example, we spoke about the green spaces We have football fields, cricket fields, basketball courts in the Marabella South Vistabella district. And one of the things that I am targeting at doing in my second term is going to these businesses within the community, within the district, and saying to them, listen, these residents, they support and patronize business. They provide for towards your profitability. And I would like for you to partner with me in giving back. And so one of the things that we're looking at is to develop again a community and knowledge of everyone. Would be things like five-a-side football tournaments, basketball tournament, windball cricket tournaments, and I will be asking businesses to partner with me in sponsorship as partnering with me from the position of prize monies for the various events. So what that does a number of things. First of all, it provides some sort of meaningful activity for the young people. So you know the old people have a saying, the devil always have work for idle hands.
Yes.
So it takes away that. Secondly, it provides a relationship between the business community and the residents. So these same people who might go to these businesses to rob them, let's just say, will think twice, because now we have a relationship with them. They visit us while we're playing football and look at us and sponsoring stuff for us. And so there's also another thing that would help in the reduction of crime, in the establishment of other means of income for the young people and the young at heart. And again, coming back to the point, in establishing some kind of physical activity regime, as well as a healthier lifestyle for the residents of Marabella South Vistabella.
Mr. Marcus Girdharie, our time have run out. Tell us in about a minute or two your closing statements. Why the residents of Marabella, is Marabella South, is it?
Marabella South Vistabella. Why you need to vote for Marcus Girdharie of the People's National Movement? Simply because no other political party has communicated a change in what you know today as the local government position. Reform is the change. Reform is the way that we are going to improve our services and expand our services and timeliness of our deliverables to you, the residents. I have been on the group, you know the work that I have done in my first term, and give me the opportunity simply to extend my work into more areas where I can improve the level of community development, safety, and well-being for you and your families in Marabella Vistabella. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. This has been Hotline with Ann Dookie. Remember, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. Mahatma Gandhi.